In this tutorial, we're going to create the walls to the game room. We'll begin by creating a free image plane. I'll go to Create, Free Image Plane, and we're going to import the single wall template that I provided. With the free image plane selected, I'm going to go to the attributes. In the attributes, I will go to Image Name, click on the folder, and go out to the folder and apply the template. And we're looking for the one with the single wall. I'll hit W on the keyboard and I'll move it up so the bottom edge of that black line template is on my XZ axis. And I'll put it back a little bit. And I'll go to my front view and I'm going to create a polygon plane following the template itself. You'll see these black lines that define the shape. So, holding down my space bar, I'll go to Create, Polygon Planes, and Plane. And because I've set the interactivity, I can click and drag the exact shape I need. So if I return to my perspective window, I should have something like this. So at this point, the three walls are going to be the same, so I don't need the template anymore. So I'll select it and I'll delete it. And I'll just move this back a little bit. And I want to duplicate this wall 2 more times. So in order to kind of snap these together precisely the way I'd like, my option could be to hold down D and V, and I can snap the pivot point to the edge of the geometry, which means now if I were to hit Command D to duplicate, and then E to get my rotation tool, looking at my channel box, I can start to rotate, and I can see that I need to rotate on my y-axis minus 90 degrees. Now I need one more. So I'll hit W on the keyboard and I'll hit Command D to duplicate. Now because the pivot is already against the right hand edge of this wall and the duplicate is embedded at the moment, I can hold down V and I can snap that to the edge of the back wall. Now again I'll hit E on the keyboard and I'll begin to rotate it. And once again, I'll pump in 0 here to make it a 90-degree angle. At this point, I'll save, and then I'm going to create the floor. So I'm just going to marquee select all of these, hit W on the keyboard. I'm just going to kind of center it a little bit more over the grid. And then I'll do this by eye for now. I'll hold down my space bar. I'll go to Create Polygon Primitives, yet another plane, and I'll click and drag to define the size of it. Next, we'll apply a new texture to the 3 walls. I'll marquee select or shift select. Right-clicking and holding my mouse down, I'll go to Assign New Material, Arnold AI Standard Surface. And in my attributes, I'll name it. And in my viewport, I can see my walls are black, so I'm going to go to Lighting, I'm going to choose two-sided lighting. We're going to map with planar each of these surfaces to make a UV map in which to place the next template file that we'll use to create the window and the door on the walls. So I'll select the back wall first. I will go to UV. I'm going to go to planar mapping, to the attributes. By selecting the wall and hitting W, I can see which axis is perpendicular to that surface. So this is going to be the x-axis. I'll set the x-axis, I'll hit apply, and I'll go to my channel box, and I will make the projection width and height the same number. I'm going to choose 20. I will right-click and go back to my object mode. I'll select the wall on the right. That will be Z. I'll hit apply. Keeping it proportional, I'll make the projection width and height 20. Right-clicking in my viewport back to my object mode, I'll select the last wall. That is also Z. I'll hit apply, and I'll make that 20. I'll right-click and go back to my object mode. Now, I need to bring up the UV editor because I need to place all 3 of these new UVs where I can put a different texture on each one. So I will get my UV editor by going to UV editor, and I'll select one of the walls. I'll zoom back a bit. Now because there are 3 of them, I'm going to right click and I'm going to use UV shell at like 10 o'clock. I'll select it And with my move tool hitting W, I'm just going to pull it out because I know if I was to select yet another wall, it's in the same spot. So once I've done that, I'll select that one and I'll put that one roughly over here. And I'll select the last one and I'll put that one down here somewhere. Now I want to be a little bit more careful about placing these. So in my viewport, I'll make sure I go back to my object mode, and then I'll marquee select all three walls. And this allows me to use all of them at the same time and see them on my viewport. So all three of these have to fit in this quadrant right here where we see these access lines. So I'll right click and choose UV shell. Select this one, I'll pull it down a little tighter here. I'm leaving a bit of a gap so I've got some wiggle room with the texture. And I'll drag the other one here, line them up a little bit, and then I'll marquee select all of them, pull them into that quadrant, and I'll hit R for my scale tool, and I'll fit them into here. Now making sure that I go back to my object mode, I'll marquee select all three. And I can see now I can generate that UV map I need to bring it to Photoshop. I'll go to Image, UV Snapshot. I'll direct it to the folder I'd like to place it, giving it a name. I'll save it, making sure that I've got a PNG as the image format. I'm making the size 1024 by 1024. And the edge is black. I'll hit Apply and Close. Next, we're going to Photoshop and we'll place the reference file for where we're going to cut the window and the doors on our surfaces. In Photoshop, I've opened up the PNG we generated in Maya, and I've opened up the template with the three walls on it. We'll copy and paste each of these elements into the PNG. So hitting M on the keyboard, I'll use my rectangle marquee, and I'll make a selection of the right wall. Hitting Command C or Control C to copy, I'll jump to the PNG, and I'll hit Command V to paste. Now, first thing I'm going to do is change the layer order here, because layer 1 is that UV map. So I'll click on it, double click, and I'll put in UV. And then I'll drag it above the file I just pasted in. Now I can see the shape that I'll need to make that first wall to fit in the one on the top here. So I'll go to Edit, Transform, Scale, and I'll start to scale that down to fit in the top. I'll return to the template I've provided, and I'll copy the back wall. And we're going to do the same for the left wall. Copy and paste each one to their own layer. Now that I've copied and pasted what I need into this new PSD, I'll go ahead and save that, and we'll apply that as a texture inside of Maya. I'll select one of the walls, right-clicking, holding my mouse down, and I'll go to Material Attributes. And in my Material Attributes, under Base, I'll click on the checkerboard at the end of the slider bar for color. I'll go to File, click on the folder, and I'll navigate out to apply that texture. I'll select the viewport and hit 6 on the keyboard to preview that template we've placed on our walls. The next video tutorial will start to make the shapes for the windows and the door.